Your Grand Rising, how everybody doing? This is your Coach Renz. And welcome to the show. Start 10 minutes later than we normally do, but welcome to Deconstructing Christianity. I'm your host, Coach Renz. If you're finding this for the first time, then the primary objective on this channel right now is to help those who have deconstructed from Christianity by providing more and more information as far as their deconstructing process and providing a community by which that goal can be shared and the trials and tribulations can also be shared and helped. We give about 5 minutes before we get started on the subject matter, and the subject matter tonight is how does the different religions compare in getting to heaven, the process. And we're going to talk about those as well as talk about reality, the reality of it all. And if there is this heaven and how it works and how it would work. So I got my coffee, I got finishing off a cigar, got another one in the wing. So don't get worried. I know some of you guys know that once the cigar is gone, I usually end the show. But this is not the show cigar. Grand Rising Crypto, Tim, how you guys doing tonight? Beautiful hot day here in San Antonio. Oh, I will let you guys know, and I'll probably repeat it later. We are planning still to have an event, a gathering. We was looking at the Halloween weekend, but we realized that we will be moving that weekend, leading up to that weekend. Our lease is up on October 31st, or technically November 1st. So we're going to change the venue to Corpus Christi, Texas, which actually opens up some opportunities to have campfires on the beach sessions and things of that nature as well. So it's going to be in Corpus Christi the week after Thanksgiving. So that's November something. Like November 7th weekend of November 7th. Grand Rising Sean, how you doing? We are streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Preachers. We no longer stream on TikTok, so we don't talk to those people. TikTok just be acting up. So just Facebook and YouTube is where we go over this information tonight. I hope everybody had a great weekend. What did we do this weekend? There was a cigar festival in San Antonio. So we participated in the cigar festival in San Antonio to a certain extent, just a little bit, not a lot of it. And so we had a really good weekend. It was hot. It was hot in San Antonio, 90-degree weather. Degrees in mid-March. Gotta love it. Appreciate that, Crypto. Coach Renz. I mean, Hercules. So how was you guys' weekend? Everybody have a good weekend, safe and secure. I know there was a lot of storm systems that was going through the southeast over the weekend, so hopefully everybody's all right. Got that hedge of protection around you kind of thing. But we had a really good weekend. It got a little windy here, but it's always windy here. Sean said it went from the 40s to the 70s and back to the 40s. That's what you get for living up north. Isn't Samson taken from Hercules? There are a lot of similarities to the Samson and Hercules stories. I wouldn't say it's a direct, it was taken directly. Most likely there might have been some aspects of it, but Samson is more of a Gilgamesh story instead of a Hercules story. But you can find some correlation. There are some correlations between the two, but it's more of a Gilgamesh story than a Hercules story. Gilgamesh had those trials, those 12 trials. He, had his friend fought a lion, did all the same similar thing, was a king. But you have many stories of kings who went through these trials and became great people. It's kind of like one of those stories that you can find in almost every culture. You are welcome, Divine Empress. I know I'm answering people. I ain't even put their stuff up. You are very welcome. Thank you very much for being here. And that was who asked about Hercules. So as you see it, once again, we are on Facebook and YouTube. I know only YouTube people can see YouTube comments and Facebook people can see Facebook comments. So it is time for us to get started on our conversation. We are a minute behind. So tonight, I want this conversation to be very interactive. So I will be looking at the chat column quite often, as well as if anybody wants to come on to the show and express their thoughts, you will be more than welcome to do so as well. I like an active communication. So in tonight's show, we're going to talk about the fact of how do you get to heaven compared to all the other religions? When you consider it, the whole idea of religion, the whole concept of religion, at the end of the day, it is people's desire to live in a world, in a situation that is devoid of all the pain and suffering that we experience on this plane of reality. So we're going to do a couple of things tonight. Well, one of the things we're going to do is compare some of the religions, ancient and today's religions, as to how do you get to heaven. And after we compare them, then we want to look at them and see what does any of them, not that. Then we want to compare and see which one is better. If you were a God, which one was better, made more sense, it's more logical, it's more loving, makes, and then the last part, and then another part of that is any of them real? Does it make any sense in its totality? And to a certain degree, there's one or two that do have quite a few instances where it would make sense. And then the last part that we are going to discuss is the aspect of what is our most likely reality. I'm going to do something in the end of this discussion, not the end of the whole discussion, but in this part of the discussion, which usually lasts about 45 minutes to an hour. I'm going to discuss something that I rarely talk about. And that thing that I rarely talk about is what is my perception of it all? What I don't like utilizing the term believe, but to a certain extent, everybody gets to a belief part. But for me, the belief part has to be backed by enough circumstantial evidence that it is the most likely outcome. So towards the end of this discussion, I will discuss that aspect of what is the most likely outcome. If it's one of the religions, or is it something that is very different? Now, if you've been listening to my podcast long enough, have consumed enough information, you are probably halfway there, if not further along, in knowing exactly where my thoughts lie, because they are integrated throughout many, many videos. So we're going to talk about that. Demetrius Forever. Can I ask a question? What if we are wrong about the history of Jesus? Which history would you be talking about? Would you be talking about the Judaic history, the Christian history, the Greco-Roman history, the biblical history? I can tell you that the biblical history is wrong in its totality. The Judaic history is closer to the truth, and but the reality is that he was created. The biblical version of Jesus was created based on multiple people who were itinerant preachers in the early first century, and then pieced together in the mid to late first century, most likely by the writer Josephus ben Matthias, who was writing for the Flavians at the time frame around 70 CE, 70 to 90 CE. This caught hold, and then you had people who might have been a Paul, who would have been one of the first disciples of it, could have existed, most likely. Some say he did, but did Paul exist in the framework that Paul existed? Most likely not. And that spreading of that word, of that story, I should say, created the Jesus narrative and created churches and beliefs in an attempt to get rid of the Jewish religion so that they would stop revolting throughout the Roman Empire. Tim says heaven is a strip club and a golf course. All right, so let's get into this discussion tonight. So, as most of us know, that the process, we're going to start with Christianity. Christianity is the primary one that most of us grew up in, most of us believed in at some point. And in believing in Christianity, what is the process of getting to heaven? That is the question that we're starting out with, so that we can compare. So in Christianity, the way that you get to heaven is simply to believe in the birth, the death, the resurrection, and the ascension of Jesus. And then about 300 to 400 years after he supposedly did those things, the Trinity of Jesus becoming and being one with God. So in order for you to get to heaven by Christianity, you have to believe in this Jesus. Now, in believing in this Jesus, there are some caveats, because oftentimes we think about the person who committed crimes throughout their lives, or they were mean and evil people and they didn't believe in this God, but then all of a sudden at the very last day, the very last moment, they give themselves over to Jesus. They have their deathbed confessions, and then this person is automatically rewarded into heaven because they were sympathetic at that time frame. Now, there are also the overwhelming majority of people who are Christian, claim Christianity, but they live a life that goes counter to what the Bible would say that person should be. There's a part of the Bible in the New Testament, it talks about Jesus will return. And upon his return, he says that there will be many who have called out my name, many who have done miracles in my name, but I will not know them. Right? So that would indicate that there were going to be people who weren't sincerely Christian. And those insincere Christians will not be able to go to heaven. But those who were sincere Christians who changed their lives, as the writings in Paul says that they will, the writings of Paul, claimed by Paul, says that you become a new creature when you come over to the belief of this God. So you should be able to identify someone who is someone who is truly a Christian by the attributes of that person, the way they live their life, the love that they show, the consideration they show, the fairness, the honesty, the integrity that they show. There's so many people who, I'm a Christian, but I'm out here and I'm selling drugs. I'm a Christian, but I'm taking advantage of consumers. I'm a Christian, and I'm in government, and I'm making laws that are hurtful to the people. I'm taking lobbyist money. That I'm a Christian, and I beat my wife, or I beat or abuse my husband, my children. They are Christian, but they don't seem to be new creatures in this Christ mindset. They don't turn the other cheek. They cast stones. They judge. They do all the things that are against what a new creature in this religion is supposed to be. And I would say that that's going to nix out the overwhelming majority of people who claim Christianity. Right? You got the pastors as what's my guy? Who just said that? Oh no, as Queen said, you got the pastors who are sleeping with the congregation, taking the money and lying to people about how God is going to bless them. You have people claiming that, oh, God told me to tell you this, and God told me to tell you that, knowing good and well it is their own emotions. It is no God that's telling them any of those things. So, how do you get to God by being a Christian? Well, you get to God by being a Christian by becoming a person who believes in the golden rule, a person who doesn't treat anybody harshly, treats people with love, care, consideration, is mindful of their actions, their deeds, their thoughts. That would be a actual true Christian. But now let's not forget, a true Christian is also someone who agrees with slavery. A true Christian is also someone who agrees with women being subservient to men. A true Christian is also someone who says that that the laws of the Old Testament are still valid today, because remember also this, Jesus said that not one tittle of the law will be taken out, that all these people will still that all the rules, the rituals, you're still supposed to be sacrificing animals. You're still supposed to have all these festivals and that you're supposed to maintain, or rituals or holidays that you're supposed to maintain. You're supposed to do all of these things. So in that instance, pretty much every Christian, those who claim Christianity, even those who are good people, but they are living an American lifestyle, a European lifestyle, African lifestyle, Indian or Chinese or Japanese lifestyle, all those Christians are now voided, because those Christians, they're not keeping these high holy holidays. They're not, when a baby is born, sacrificing pigeons. You know, they're not doing the rituals that they're supposed to do for in perpetuity, as it is said in the Old Testament. They're not doing these things, so they are not still true Christians, because they are not upholders of the law. So there is no, in all honesty, there is no true Christian. And then this is one of the biggest things that makes all Christians, most of these people, non-Christians, because Christians have the idea of repentance is to say, oh, I'm sorry, God. Oh, I should have made that mistake. I didn't mean to steal. I didn't mean to kill. I didn't mean to tell that lie. But something as simple as a lie, Christians have a hard time repenting, because repentance is not merely praying to your God and asking your God for forgiveness, but to repent for something is to go to that person and fix the situation. So if you have lied to someone, if you never go back and tell them the truth, you have not repented. If you stole from someone and you have not went back and fixed that situation and given them back, you have not repented. So many Christians claim that they've repented of their repentance of their sins, but modern day doctrine, and this is doctrine, this is not what your Bible tells you, this is the doctrine. Modern day doctrine has taught Christians, that people who claim Christianity, that all they have to do is ask God for forgiveness. I cheated on my wife. I don't have to tell her. I don't have to do any of those things. I just need to ask for forgiveness, and I'm good. And that's all I need to do. So Christians do not repent. That in itself will go against the idea of them being true Christians, because they do not repent. So they don't repent, and they do not keep all the high holy holidays. They do not keep all the laws. They do not keep all the commandments. Therefore, they fail at being Christians. They fail at their pathway to God. They have simplified it to correlate with whatever cultural society that we live in. So, but that is the process for Christians. Now, I can't go deep into some of the other religions. I'm gonna go as deep as I possibly can, because I didn't study them for that long, and I studied most of them 20, 30 years ago. As far as Judaism, since it is the father of the two of the biggest religions in the world, Judaism is very simple. The way that you get to God, the way that you get to heaven, is by making sure that you follow all the laws, follow all the commandments, follow all the rituals. You have to be a good person to the extent of the goodness of the God of the Old Testament. Please stop writing in all caps. If you continue to write in all caps, I will ban you from this channel. I'll block you. As simple as that. If your words can't gain people's attention, if your argument can't gain people's attention on its own, you will be kicked out. I can't stand seeing caps. So, in Judaism, it is by your works, it is by your actions, it is by your deeds, but it is also by your commitment and belief in this God, Yahweh, El, Jehovah. If you don't sacrifice the animals in Judaism, you can't go and be with God. If you don't keep all the laws and rituals, so if you don't keep the laws and rituals that I spoke of earlier, if you don't have a daughter who is a virgin when she is married, you are not keeping within the laws. And if that daughter is not a virgin and you don't stone her to death, then you're not keeping with the rituals and the laws. If you don't genocide a people who are on the lands that go from the Mediterranean to the Euphrates, from Lebanon down to the Sinai Peninsula, you're not getting to God through Judaism. You have to accept those things and believe those things and commit to those things. But Jewish doctrine has changed and said that, oh, we don't have the third temple right now, so we don't have to practice these sacrifices. Well, that's not in your Bible. It's not in the Bible at all. This God didn't say that you have to have the temple. That was something that was brought about by Jehoiakim. Well, first Hezekiah, who after much of the northern Israelite kingdom was destroyed by the Assyrians, cultivated an idea that the Jerusalem takes the place of all the temples and all the other smaller cities and towns. And so if you don't, so you didn't have to have one there. So come on to Jerusalem. That way I can collect all the money of the Levites and I can collect all the animals. That was then later emphasized even more by Jehoiakim. And so that was something more doctrine, something more man-made. But the commands of this God, according to the Old Testament, is that in every town, in every city, there are supposed to be Levites. And those Levites are the ones that you go to for the sacrifices. Those are the ones that if you don't have the animals, that you give them money. That was the original setup for them. But since that all changed because of doctrine and war, conquest, and now because of culture, because we know that if you were sacrificing animals in most countries, most westernized countries, you would probably go to jail for Um, all right, last warning on the all caps. He lives. You got one more time and you'll be blocked. This channel is not for you anyway, but hey. So, how many people who practice Judaism are actually committed to these things? How many people who practice Judaism that if they have unruly children, will take them to the elders and have them stoned? How many are putting a piece of cloth under their daughters on their first wedding night and seeing if she bleeds? And if she doesn't bleed, then she is being stoned. How many of them are telling their daughters that you cannot have the inheritance of your fathers unless you marry someone who is within the tribes? We know that this is not happening because we see plenty of Israelite women marry people of outside of their tribes. I have seen plenty Israelite women giving up the goods, and they not married, and yet they are not stoned. So we know that there are very few who actually, if any, practice this to the letter of the law, to the letter of the scriptures that they claim. But those are the things that you have to do in order to get to God through Judaism. Those same rules apply to Christians in order to get to God. Now in Islam, it's a bit different. In Islam, yes, they have many of the Old Testament beliefs and writings, and I'm not the greatest at Islam, so I'm not going to be able to go through all of Islam in the same way. But what I do know about Islam is that in order to make it to God, you have to pray 5 times a day. You have to devote yourself and submit yourself to Allah. You have to respect Muhammad and Jesus. It's Isa, I believe is the name that they call him. You also have to kill the infidels. You also overtax people who are foreigners living in your lands. You also, if you have a slave, you are permitted to have a slave, but if you have a slave, you have to make a way for them to be able to get out of that slavery. You are looked upon greater if you were to do that. You also, as a person in Islam, have to be okay with slavery, but we know that that is not their mindset. Many have left the idea of women being subservient to men. If you go to certain other countries, you will see a harsh level of subservientness towards men, in Saudi Arabia for one. But if you go to Dubai, you see women have more freedoms. These freedoms, though, are still regulated based on the will of men. So Dubai women, yes, they can own businesses now. Yes, they can drive. They don't have to cover themselves in the same way, but they are still held to a substandard level. And men, they just have more freedom than others. You also have to make your pilgrimage to Mecca. Now, Maria is saying that you don't have to necessarily make a way for your slave to be free, but if they convert over to Islam, then you could let them be free, but this is not a command. I'm going to take your word for it. I studied Islam 30 years ago for 6-8 months. Found it lacking. But what I do recognize is that you still have to be subservient to some God. That there's an outside force, an outside energy that you have to become subservient to. That you have to follow these traditions that were written by men. You have to make this journey to Mecca. You have to throw some stones at a rock, and as you circulate, as you go into statistics, I can't. Boy, losing these 2 teeth over here just mess me up sometimes. As you make your circles around this meteorite, you throw stones at it. And there are other rituals that you have to follow in order to become a member, to make it to God in this religion. But at the end of the day, you are still treating people in such ways that you would not desire to be treated yourself. And in that, that's pretty much a very beginning way. But the primary thing is your prayers and your submission to this God, and then keeping up with its rules and regulations. This mistreatment of women and foreigners is the way that you get to God in Islam. Now, trying to see some of you guys' comments real quick here. So, as we continue, because I want to get all of them out real quick, not hitting all of them. Some of them I can't even talk about because I don't know. Buddhism is one of the more interesting ones because Buddhism doesn't require you to submit to any god. It merely requires you to get into what the Tao calls a flow, an energetic flow of the universe. The difference between Taoism and Buddhism, though, comes into play where suffering. The idea of Buddhism is to escape suffering and to stay away from things that causes suffering, and to eventually at some point eliminate the desires that you have that causes suffering. And in that, you go through the Eightfold Paths, which sounds very similar to Zoroastrianism, where it is about their thoughts, it is about your deeds, it is about your words, having good thoughts, good words, good deeds. It is how you treat yourself, how you treat other people. It is those types of things in Buddhism that allows you to get into what they would call the Buddha mind, or becoming a Buddha yourself. Now, I've never looked at Buddhism as more as a religion, which because it follows more along the lines of a philosophy instead of a religion. Uh, the only thing about Buddhism is that to have the desire to rid yourself of desire is a desire. And all desires, even though thank you, Maria. Maria put it up here. In Buddhism, desire is considered evil. And even though desires can cause suffering, if I desire to rule the world, if I desire to take someone's land, if I desire to take someone's agency, but I can also have the desire to feed the homeless. I can have a desire to shelter the homeless. I can have a desire to be a good husband, a desire to be a good father. There are many desires, and quite a few desires that most people have that are not harmful. If you desire to be an honest person, which is one of the tenets of the Eightfold Paths, you will have to desire it to become it. So for a desire to be swept completely like that doesn't work. And then, and Maria can help me out on this part. I don't know if karma started with Buddhism or Hinduism, or not karma, dharma. The idea that you have a dharma that you must account for, repent for. I know, well, you know what? I'm pretty sure it was in Hinduism because that's how the caste system was developed. But this idea of a caste system that you are born, thank you, Maria said it started in Hinduism. You were born with this negative dharma already upon you, and you have to account for it. When did your dharma start? Right? When was this time frame that you were clean of dharma, and then you lived and you created this dharma that you have to now get over, get past? Mercurial Lore, if you hold on for about 15 minutes or so, we'll get into my thoughts. That's what I promised at the end of this part of the lecture. But the idea of dharma and karma is this overwhelming idea that there is this punishment that you created, that you then have to, that is the cause of your suffering. You were an evil person. Let's put it closer to our time now. You were a slave owner. Well, now you've been reincarnated into the very type of person you enslaved, and you're poor and you're abused by your parents or by your community, and you are paying for your dharma. And now you have to overcome that. No. That is one of the places where those two religions lost me. Because the moment you say that I'm paying for some shit that I don't have no clue of, and that is why my life is not as good, or and that's why I went through some of the suffering that I went through, and now I have to overcome that suffering, and I have to be a better person, then no. I didn't create any negative things that in a past life that now is causing me to have to suffer through this life. I did something in my past life, and that's why I was born as a young black man in Marietta, Georgia in the 1970s, still experiencing damn near Jim Crow laws up until the 80s. No. Still in a situation where I live in a country or world where it is more difficult for a person of color than it is for a person of non-color. It makes no sense. That is not because of my dharma. That is just because of the will of people, the mindset of man, the separation that we love to create between ourselves. So no. So I'm just reading some of your comments. But no, so all of this, no. So those two, they still come up a little lacking. They still come up lacking. When you can look at a person and see them suffering and say that, oh, you are paying for your dharma. And we know karma just don't work. There's some people who did all kinds of, and to me, sometimes at a level, dharma kind of is the excuse for people who are treacherous throughout their entire life and they die. And then it's like, oh, the dharma gonna get them in the next life. No, they need to pay their punishment in this life. You went your whole life raping, murdering, and stealing, and you got to wait till your next life? Nah. No, we need some of that get back right now. You need some of that right now, not later. So no. And then the idea that, oh, if you they may not receive their karma in the way that you are. They may be rich, but they're miserable. They may be, they may have a great family, but they're depressed. No. People like to say money can't buy you happiness. That's a poor person statement to me. Money can buy me a whole lot of happiness because of the things that I would do with it. I'd be very happy. Or as one of my, when I used to work for this gentleman, he said that he said, money can't buy me happiness, but I can be miserable in a really nice place. And I told him, you lying, because you got enough money to do whatever, to live like how you want to, you're going to be happy. Now, you pick bad relationships and things of that nature, that's on you. You put too much stress on you, that's on you. But that ain't got nothing to do with the money. But yes, life isn't fair because of the decisions that people make. Yeah, sure will. Uh, no, but I'll explain that in a few minutes. That's part of my personal thoughts of everything. That's part of how I live and how I see the universe functioning. So I also want to look at some of the ancient religions. Now, I did hit the Zoroastrians a little bit. In Zoroastrianism, it is the mindset that, and even though Zoroastrianism is still alive today, it is nowhere near as popular as it used to be in the 6th century, or 7th, 6th, 5th century BCE. But in Zoroastrianism, which much of the biblical writers seem to pull from, there is the worship of Ahura Mazda, and his enemy is Agramenia. And even though they have the idea of right thoughts equal right words equal right thoughts equal right words equal right deeds. So think the right thing, say the right thing, live your life the right way. There is still the submission to Ahura Mazda. There is still the submission to the Zavatas, uh, no, Yazatas, which is the angelic host of Ahura Mazda. There is still the isolation of you cannot learn and become Zoroastrian. You have to be born into the religion. So if you're neither of your parents are Zoroastrians, you can't just walk up into the Zoroastrian temple, church, whatever they call it, and then become a Zoroastrian. You have to be born into it. So it's an isolation cult. That's the reason why it is a dying religion, is because it is based on birth rates, right? So this old Persian, now Iranian religion still says that you have to bow down and worship this God, that there is still some evil deity that is trying to disrupt your life and keeps you from thinking right and speaking right and acting right. And then you can only be born into it. And I ain't gonna lie, I was very sad when I found out about that back in 1991, that I cannot become a Zoroastrian unless I was born into it. Now, of course, that was me at 20 years old, giving my agency over to someone else thought process. So I got another one. Don't worry about Tim. So being submissive to another God, that is your pathway. In the ancient Kemetic religion, the only way to get to the Sea of Reeds or the Field of Reeds was if your heart was lighter than the feather of Ma'at. And the feather of Ma'at were based on the 42 confessions of Ma'at. I have not stolen. I have not committed adultery or coveted. I have not lied. I have not, all of these 42 confessions. And if your heart was if your heart was lighter than a feather, because they believe that the heart is where the consciousness or the soul, or they call it the ka, is, then you are given passage into the sea of reeds, where you live pretty much the same damn life that you was living beforehand. So it was purely based on your deeds, but there was the idea that if you could not afford to get a book of spells, a book of the dead written for you, then you didn't have the spells or sayings to be able to go through the journey with Anubis to get to the scale of Mayat, so that your heart can be measured. So if you was poor, dirt ass poor, and you couldn't afford a scribe to write out you a spell book, then you would never make it to the scales, and therefore you don't get to go to the field of reeds. So how is this fairness? Where is the fairness in this? This basically becomes a rich person, rich person, upper middle class religion. And we know that the overwhelming majority of the world is, at that time framing, pretty much still today, the overwhelming majority of the world is not wealthy. The overwhelming majority of the world are either teetering just above the poverty line or below that damn poverty line. So in that reference, ancient people, because scribal work was expensive, if it was today and you say, oh, you just have to get this book of spells and it's mass produced like we produce things today with the printing press, pretty much everybody can afford to get one. But for the people who believed in that religion, quite a few other people could not afford it. So they would all go to hell, or oblivion, actually, because they would never make it to the scales of Mayat. So when you compare these religions, and most religions, then you'll find that most every other religion is going to follow some similar pathway. It's going to be something similar to any and all the things that I just talked about. There's a submission to some God outside of yourself. Almost all of them are going to have that submission of some God outside yourself. The only two that I initially think about is Taoism and Buddhism. Doesn't have a submission to some deity or belief in some overarching God that you have to submit to. And that's very important, that I'm saying you have to submit to. You have to give in to their ways. You have to believe and worship them. How they functioned in humanity, the rules, the rituals, the laws, the commandments that they all set up. You have to follow all these things in order to get into this heaven. Some are more harsh than others. Some are more difficult and, quite frankly, impossible than others. I find Christianity to be the most impossible religion to get into heaven than all the other religions. If you really, really drill down on them, you can get to Allah easier than you can get to Jesus. You can get to hell, you can get to El easier than you can get to Jesus. Samadhi, Buddha head, you can get there way, way easier than getting to Jesus. You can get to Ahura Mazda easier than getting to Jesus. So these other religions are easier to get to God. And even the ancient ones are easier to get to God, easier to get to whatever this heaven thing that people are trying to strive for, than Christianity. Christianity is actually the most difficult, if you really think about it. Ray, you're gonna have to listen to it later, but I'm gonna hit some of them right now. The thing about it is, at least in most other religions, Islam, Judaism, I got a set of rules that I have to follow. I got to pray 5 times a day. I gotta follow this law of these. I mean, I gotta follow these laws that talks about these rituals and these holidays that I have to accept. I have to, like, we're in Ramadan right now. I have to, not not eat or drink during the day, but I can eat and drink and party all night. Actually, in my old neighborhood, and if I was in still living in Atlanta in Stone Mountain right now, my half my neighborhood was Muslim. So I'll be able to walk out and show you how since the sun is down, oh, it's 50, 60 people at one house eating, partying and drinking to the wee hours of the evening. And then during the day, we can't eat, it's Ramadan. Now, before I light this one, I ain't gonna say his name, but these were sent to me as a gift. These were sent to me as a gift, so I want to say thank you for the gift. But all the other religions are easier. Ooh, it is blurry. Why does this camera do that from time to time? Oh well. So, if I had to choose any of the common religions, I would most likely choose Buddhism. But the opposite end of that spectrum, in my opinion, is Islam. I mean, is Christianity. Well, wiping it off didn't help. Let me see something here. Let me see if I can do something about this. Oh, sorry about that, y'all. I was trying to do something about this camera so it'll stop fading in and out, and right now it seems to really want to be faded in and out. I don't see where I can zoom in and out. I don't see that opportunity. Stop the microphone. Solo layout. Oh, just see that just cleared up on its own for some strange reason. So, in the Christianity is the most difficult one, if you think about it, because you have to keep all the laws and rituals of Judaism. And although many Christians don't accept that, they say they don't have to. Even if you just looked at Christianity based on the current doctrine of Christianity, most people who claim Christianity fail. They don't repent. They don't. They treat women as equal. They allow women to be preachers. They allow them to speak and teach in the churches. Not every woman is having childbirth, and they are saved through childbirth. That was repeated in 2 Timothy, I believe. 1st or 2 Timothy, it was repeated, something from the Old Testament. They do not turn the other cheek. They are warmongering. They keep the laws that they like and throw away the ones they don't like. But I think the biggest one is that they don't repent. They do not. I got a question for y'all. When y'all were Christians, how many of y'all actually used to repent? You know what I mean? Like, how many of y'all repented? You lied to somebody, but you went back and told them the truth. Could be years later, doesn't matter. You went back and told them the truth. Do you still have lies still hanging out there? How many of you cheated on your taxes? Did you ever go back and fix the cheating on your taxes? Hey, government, I cheated on my taxes. I just want to file this, and fix it. You beat the shit out of somebody. You hit somebody. You went back and you made amends for it. You called the problem and you didn't, and you went back and fixed it. Because I'm gonna be honest with you. I have went back and fixed, I would say, about 90% of the things that I did wrong to somebody else, or I did wrong in a situation. about 90%. Some of those things, some things I will never be able to go back and fix. Never. It's an impossibility for me to go and fix them. I remember when I was 19, I went back and I apologized to every girl that I had had sex with. And especially since most of them were virgins, I went and apologized to every girl I had sex with. I made it a mission to go and do that. Right? And I started very early in life, so I had a lot of apologizing to do. I went back and I clarified every lie that I had ever told, even though I stopped after the age of, when did that happen? What grade was I in? The eighth or ninth grade. I got caught in a lie, and it was so damn embarrassing. 8th grade. I got caught in a lie. It was so embarrassing. After the 8th grade, it was like, I ain't lying no more. The hell with that. But went back, and anytime that I even when I now later on in life, when I misrepresented myself or misrepresented the situation, I went back and fixed it. But there's still about 90% of things that I never went back and fixed. So Ray is asking, why did I do this? I did this because when I was about 19, that's when I realized what actual repentance is. I was still a Christian at the time, and I realized that repentance is to go back and fix the situation. Not just ask this God for forgiveness, but to fix the situation. Because I didn't want to be one of the ones that had been calling out Jesus' name. And then Jesus look at me and be like, I don't know you. Because I was determined to be a new creature in Christ at that time frame. So that's why I went and did it. Now, here's the thing about it. I'm glad that I did. Because it did make me a better person moving forward. I never lied to my children. I never lied to any woman that I've ever been with. My wife knows. I tell women, don't ask me questions that you don't know, that you don't want the other side of it. I tell people in general that. Right down to the simple things. Oh, how do you think I look in this dress? You sure you want me to answer? Because I'm going to tell you the truth. So, no. And then, I had to tell my sister, remember that time when you blamed this other guy for wrecking your car, tearing up your rim and, messing up your wheel? Yeah, that wasn't him. That was me. I know it broke up your friendship with that guy, but I had to go back and tell my sister. I did it. And then I went and told the guy. I did it. Actually, I told the guy long before I told my sister. That was me. I know you got blamed for it. I know you paid for it financially as well as the loss of a friendship, but that was me. So it made me into a better person. So I am appreciative of it. But I also realized that Christians don't repent. At least those who claim it. Yeah. So accountability became a big thing for me. I'm going to be accountable for everything. And I also want the credit for every goddamn thing too. Celebrate holidays, not so much. Participate in some of them, sure. Now, so I said at about the 1 hour mark, I'll tell you, and I hope that the people who constantly ask me the question, what do you believe, will listen to this part. I think Hebrew Israelites is a cult. Yeah, it's a cult. It's a whole bunch of black guys who are disappointed with their lives, and so they're trying to use something to uplift themselves. So the question always comes up, Coach Renz, what do you believe? Well, the first part is I don't like the question in itself. Belief, don't have much belief. There's not much for me to believe in. Speculation, estimates, hypothesis, I have some of those. Beliefs, I don't have any. Beliefs don't have anything to back them up. But if I have enough evidence to back up a thought process, then that's pretty much what I will go with until something either proves it or something takes it away. All right. So we live in a world where we have more scientific knowledge of how the universe works. We also live in a world where we have more philosophical understanding of how the universe works. And I will say that studying Buddhism and studying the Tao and studying Hermetics is what helped me to get to this point. Now, do I believe that there is a God in the extent that people in every other religion denotes God? No. But in Buddhism, for the most part, well, a little bit in Buddhism, just a little bit, 10 bit, but Taoism definitely, and Hermetics, there is the idea of the universal mind, the all, the flow of energy in the universe. The question is it conscious or not? Is a possibly yes, possibly no. But and conscious to the extent that we know consciousness. Yeah. So maybe there's a God, maybe there's not. But what we do know is that there is energy, and there is a natural flow to energy. There is a natural connections and disconnections in energy. We and everything else in the universe is energy. There is nothing outside of energy. There is nothing outside of matter. I know this is going to be a little hard for some of y'all, some people. But there is nothing outside of matter. Everything has matter to it. Just because we can't measure the matter, just because we can't feel it with our senses, doesn't mean it's of nothingness. Every thought has a level of consistency of matter because thoughts are comes out in frequencies. And so everything has a state of matter. The entire everything in existence, all of existence is matter, energy, and frequency. Simple as that. Certain frequencies, certain energies, certain pieces of matter are attracted to one another. You feel the matter of the air around you very slightly. You feel the pressure of the matter around you very slightly. The earth feels the pressure of the atmosphere. The atmosphere feels the pressure of the dark matter of space. It also feels all these other forces that are all energetic. Matter is everywhere. Frequency, energy, everywhere. There is nothing beyond it. There is no beginning of it. There is no end of it. For all we know, it has always existed. Matter, energy, frequency, always existed. When we look at the animals are in flow with the energy of the earth, the mind of the earth. The elements are all in flow with it. Everything on this planet, everything in the universe is in flow with one another. Sure, meteorites crash here and there. Sure, there's planets that blow up. There's stars that blow up. That's all part of the sequence of the flow of energy. So we all exist. And our energy has always existed. But our energy has not always existed in the coalesced consciousness that we have right now. This is not reincarnation. I am not in any way saying I support reincarnation. My consciousness has never existed in the form that it exists right now. I've never been a plant with this level of consciousness. I've never been a dog. I've never been an atom, a molecule. I've never been a planet or nothing. Now, could my consciousness, could the energy that makes up me, makes up my body, have been a plant, have been part of a cow since my parents ate meat? Could it have been part of the space dust or part of another? Sure. The coalescence of all the energies coming together to make me could have been anything that you want to say it could have been. But it never has been my consciousness. Now, in saying that, my consciousness have been attracted to similar things. As we see in the atomic and elemental structure, certain things are attracted to one another and certain things are repelled to one another. Certain charges of energy attract and repel. Over however long it's been, all the elements have come together to form this consciousness. When this consciousness was in its elemental state, it didn't have enough other parts to come into this level of consciousness. As more and more time went by, it developed and developed and became, and is it possible that it became the consciousness of a plant? Possibly. Did it become the consciousness of a dog? Possibly. But was that me? No. It's not until that consciousness got to enough cohesion that it was able to find a match in the sperm and the egg that created me through my parents getting it on, doing the shakalaka boom boom. Once they did that, my consciousness had a host to be in. It had a body to exist in at this level of this level of matter. And so when it came to this body, and it became me, also pulling from the energy and elements of my parents and their parents and their parents and so on and so forth, it comes down, here's Lorenzo. And the consciousness of Lorenzo was awakened at a higher state than it's ever been in any time frame whatsoever. It was never this until then, to that moment. October 15, 1971, Marietta, Georgia, 8:08 a.m. when it birthed out into this world. 10 months prior, when the sperm and the egg got together, that's when it became me. Now, in becoming me, right? Gotta pull on so it don't go out. In becoming me, it now has to continue. It has to continue to develop. It has to continue to grow. It has to rise above lower vibrational things that would separate it. You see, when you get caught up in racism, when you get caught up in gender bias, when you get caught up in nationalities and get caught up into all these different things, you're allowing your consciousness to vibrate at a lower state. Now, what we know is that when the body or anything lowers its vibration, it loses its cohesiveness. Parts are attracted to other lower vibrations of similarity and it loses its cohesiveness. It starts to spread out. It starts to dissipate. Put a body in the ground and it will slow down to the point where it gets consumed by the ground. The ground takes different parts of the ground, the different animals and insects in there, starts to take the vibrational parts that function with it. It's kind of like a lion would eat all the meat and everything, and here comes a hyena. He gonna eat the leftover meat and the bones, because the lions weren't eating the bones, but the what did I just say? The hyena will then chew on the bones, and then the ground gets its part, and it's because the vibration has gotten so low that it loses. And that's the body. If the body forms that way, functions that way, in this natural flow of the universe, then the consciousness of the mind, to which we still very undiscovered as far as being able to measure it, the consciousness, you go in a lower vibrational state, it dissipates, it goes away. This allows criminals to become psychopaths, become serial killers. You get serial abusers. You get that mindset, that consciousness is so devoid of growth that it becomes less than. Right? Now, Eric, you stupid. I had to put that up. I never watched that show, but I do remember the little jingle, the song. Now, if you go into a purposeful state, and this is going to sound a bit Buddhist, a bit Taoist, and alchemical, hermetic, going into a purposeful state of raising your vibration of your mental thought, so that it far exceeds the vibration of the society, of the average consciousness of the society that we dwell in. It has to go above the conscious state of all religions. In all these religions, there's this consciousness of this God that says, these are my chosen people. This consciousness of this God that says, these are the commandments, and these are the laws, and these are the rituals, and this is how you should have a perception of women. This is how you should have a perception of children. This is how you should have a perception of all these other people. This is how you should have a perception of how the universe works. The earth is flat, according to some of these religions, when we know it's not. Women are to be subservient to men, when we know that's not true. Women are to be property. No, that's not true. Women are the gross example of the femininity, and men are the gross example of the masculinity. And without those two working together, you create nothing. Right? So when you elevate your consciousness beyond that, you take on some of the things that we've discussed before that you find in other religions. We take on the golden rule: do unto others as you will have them do unto you. And if you've heard me say many times, and somebody said something about my morality, I take it beyond just the golden rule. You don't do to other people that you do not want done to yourself. You don't do it. Except, and I know some of y'all gonna have some, okay, on this part, I need Sean, be quiet. Trauma, be quiet. And Tim, be quiet. Eric, you might be able to say something. But the rest, them folk, shh. Because it's a great example of the exception of don't do to anyone what you would not want done to yourself. So, I had the privilege, and hear my words carefully, I had the privilege of knowing someone who was into BDSM. Because of my innate curiosity, I sat and learned a lot about it. And this is why this is a great example. In the BDSM culture, according to the person that I was talking to, you might have a person who gives commands, and then you have a person who chokes. You have a person who likes to tie people. You have a person who likes to spank people. right? Now, the commander, the choker, the spanker, what else did I say? The tire, they themselves may not desire to be commanded, choked, spanked, or tied. So that person matches up with the person who desires to be commanded. So they get the submissive, the choker gets the chokee, the spanker gets the spanky, and the tire gets the tiree. I know that don't sound right. It's probably not words, the tire and tiree, but y'all know what I'm saying, right? They find that like connection of what they don't like for themselves, but they find a person who likes it, and they have rules with it. They have an understanding with it. They are both uh, consenting towards it. That is an example of the only time where if I don't want something done to myself, I won't do it to somebody else. Now, of course, they have a small group of people to choose from. And even within that, it might be the command and commandee might be easy. There's a lot more of that. There's a lot of you out there, y'all like to tell your person what to do and come in and do this and do that. And, you know, it might be light, not to the extent that they do it, but it might be light. And yes, Isaac, this is the only time, this is one of those examples where opposites attract. In most cases, opposites don't attract. A person who likes to spend money and a person who's frugal as hell, they usually don't work out. Too many problems. All right. If you're a person who you like to live up in the cold, you wouldn't work with me. I'm not living in the cold. Wouldn't work out. Thank you, Sean. Thank you for being quiet. Because I know Tim, Sean, there's a couple of y'all, trauma, y'all have a field day with that one, and I just can't let y'all do that one. I consider not even using that example because of y'all. Now, when it comes to someone though, because this is where Christians try to say, oh, well, so the person who murders somebody else and they wouldn't mind being murdered, it's okay for them to murder. No, because murderers don't murder people who want to be murdered. Murderers go murder people who love living life. No matter how good or bad their life is, they are taking away someone's agency to live, and that person didn't desire. They didn't walk up and say, hey, I want to be murdered today. Is there any takers? They never came out, and you don't have that. You don't get that. You don't have people saying, you don't have, yes, there are women who like to play the rough, aggressive sex and so on and so forth, but you don't have women who are standing on the street corner and they're saying, hey, I'm looking for a rapist today. I'd like to be raped. Come, please rape me. You don't have that, right? So they don't have that opposite. I ain't gonna say don't, it's impossible, but the likelihood of any one of them finding anybody who says anything like that is so remote that it's unlikely to ever happen, right? So they go and steal someone's agency of having the desire to not be mutilated, tortured, raped, murdered. So no, the murderer can't just go and do some murdering, because everybody is afforded their opportunity of agency. And people take your agency all the time. When you join a religion, you are giving up your agency of being able to contemplate the universe and how it works, and if there is or is not a God on your own. Your agency has been stolen. When your parents indoctrinate you, it's been stolen. When you then go from, well, I don't like Christianity no more, so I'm gonna go over to this religion. All you've done is do a transfer of your agency from one worship of this God to the worship of that God. You just moving your agency. That's it. You still haven't identified your own agency. So even the mind can be taken from people. And this is why I don't normally talk about this. This is why I don't. But it was brought to my attention that I am not taking anyone's agency if I am merely being a guide or a coach, but they yet still make their own decisions. So, in the same way that if, like, some of y'all think you own your house, you don't own your house. The government owns your house. You got that tax certificate, which is called your title. You don't pay your taxes, you won't own that house. The government owns that house. You don't pay it for a year or two, depending upon the municipality. I come in, I pay the taxes on it. They just transfer the title to me. You don't own it. The only thing you own is your consciousness. That's it. Even when they enslaved people, the enslaved people owned their consciousness. They just gave it over to whoever dominated them physically. Until 1804, those Haitians took back their agency. Now, they did transfer their religious agency back over to their ancestral religion. Harper's Ferry, they wanted their agency in the physical life back. Right? So the only thing you ever actually can own is your agency of the agency of your consciousness. That's it. Nothing else. Nothing else is owned by you. Right? I don't own my children. I don't own my wife. Shit, I don't even own I don't own this shirt. Government can come in here right now and take every goddamn thing in here. They take my comic book collection, though we're gonna have a fight. But they can come and take everything in here. You don't own anything. They can make up a reason. All y'all who got a car, you're paying car insurance. Did you choose to pay car insurance? Or the government forces you because of the insurance lobbyists? So much of your agency is taken in your life that the only thing you have is the agency of your own mind. But when you learn to develop and grow into higher levels of thinking, you start to recognize that the only thing I can choose is what happens in my mind, and the only thing in my consciousness, the only thing what I do have agency of is what happens after I leave this shell of the body. To bring it back to what we was talking about. So the agency that I have of exploring my consciousness, elevating my consciousness, is what draws higher thought, higher vibrational thought to me. And that higher vibrational thought, the more it coalesces with other higher vibrational thought, is the more, when my consciousness leaves this shell, it stays cohesive and manifests whatever my true thoughts are. Some of these Bibles and Qurans and things have some of this in it, but it's co-opted with all this religious bullshit. And the moment you do that, you decrease the vibration. You see, if the universe is mind and the all is mind, there is an axiom that says the all is in all, but all are not the all. So therefore, my consciousness is part of the all, but it is separate from the all. So then, if that's the case, and it's like all of them like to say that you were created in the image of the all. Now they kind of got that right. You're created in the image of the all, which is mind, consciousness, but you're not created in the image of Yahweh, El, Allah, none of these deities. Those deities are in the image of man, just given deity. But if you're created, your consciousness is in the same framework as the universe and how it functions at a higher vibration. So then you manifest, you create, you become at a higher state of being than the consciousness that only can live in this meat suit. You see, when you get into a higher level of consciousness, you can't live in this. That consciousness won't be able to dwell here. It's too much. You know, it's like when you take American products, American electronics, and you go to Europe, you try to plug them in, you might blow some shit up. requires is too powerful, too much energy. So it can't be inside of this. Oh, Marcus made a Marvel comment. Y'all know how I am about Marvel. But yes, that would be just like ego. If you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2, that was how ego explained it, that when he came into the consciousness of his being, he then had to grow. He had to continue to grow. Now, he did it in a messed up way, but he had to continue to grow. So what happens? Another question people like to ask, well, what do I think happens after we leave this existence? It's all relative to the level of growth of your consciousness. If you've vibrated on the religious level of consciousness, all honesty, you will probably just separate until it recoalesce again. But if you are not held down by the lower vibrations of religion, because there's no heaven of Jesus, there's no heaven of Allah, there's no hell of the Bible, no hell of no. The oblivion that the Jews talked about, the Hebrews talked about, the oblivion that the Egyptians talk about, yeah, you're gonna go into that. You will cease to be at a conscious level of recognition. And at some point, your consciousness might come back into this level of a shell once enough vibrational energy comes to the parts of you, because there's an inner part of you that says that you are greater and you grow and you consistently grow. Now, I don't liken that until reincarnation, because it's not reincarnation. Because it is not the fullness of who you are being something else and then coming back and you're still the fullness of who you are. You've attracted other aspects. You know, what you attracted before wasn't enough, or it was enough, but then you allow for the lower vibration to separate those things. Those parts of your consciousness, they went and connected with something else. So when people say, I don't want to come back to this earth, you're not. You're not. Don't worry about it. You shouldn't. I'm scared of going to hell. Don't worry about it. You're not. But you're not going to heaven. You're not going to any kind of heaven either. You are going to recycle and be something completely, wholeheartedly different. You might not even be on earth. Probably won't be on earth. But if you want to stop this expulsion of your consciousness and then regrouping, expulsion back out and regrouping, but of course every regrouping is 100% different. Well, let me not say 100%. It's 75% different. Then you're going to be, you have to raise your consciousness. You have to increase your conscious state of being. You know, when I was a personal trainer, I used to tell my clients 25% of who you are is genetic. The other 75% is environmental. And when it comes to who you are as a conscious being, 25% of it is cohesive. It's a natural state. The rest of it is your environment. You see, there are certain things that I've done in my life that my father did, but I didn't grow up with my father. I grew up with my grandfather. Right? Didn't start to get to know my father until I was 27. But in talking to him, I learned that there was a lot of things that he and I did or thought that were the same. We have a lot of similarities in our thought processes. But that only represented about 25%. That is only within that 25%, I should say. Everything else was environmental. So there's a core consciousness to you. But if that core consciousness is left at the state when you were born, then that's all that you are. It's just that core consciousness. Now, as you grow up, all this environmental stuff either raises or lowers your consciousness. So the goal is to raise your consciousness. It is not to worship Jesus, worship gods, worship any deity. It is not these rules of sacrificing animals and treating people differently. It is the recognition that we are all, everything in the universe is connected. Everything in the universe flows, and there's a natural flow to it. Whether we perceive some of these natural flows as good or bad, like a comet hit Earth, we're going to say that's a bad thing because most of us are going to die. If Halley's comet hit the Earth, most other people are going to die. But it's a natural flow of the universe. It's just how it naturally flows. It's not, that's not good or bad. Stealing someone's agency, that's bad. What? You said Star Trek, and I love the Star Trek. So just kidding. You're part of the cube floating through the universe until enough particles are attracted to bring you back to Earth. But this is all that we are. This is the way it is. When what's an example of that in space? A star collapses. It becomes a black hole. It pulls in matter, energy, light, frequencies until it has enough to be beyond the capability of holding it in that dark space, and boom, it explodes out. It creates a whole new nebula. The nebula creates more stars. Those stars create more planets. And it goes through this whole cycle over and over again. After billions of years, it collapses back again, sucking everything in, and boom, explodes back out. Nature demonstrates this attraction and this explosion. And I know I missed a lot of what you guys are saying. And I know some of y'all are talking to each other. Now, let me see some of your comments here. Let me scroll up. Now, I always found this interesting. We exist in heaven and hell every day. And that existence is based on our perception. And also the idea that there, like, someone's heaven is another man's hell. Someone's hell is another man's heaven. That is something that we exist in a constant state. But it is your detachment from those concepts that's one of the things that will help you raise that vibration, is a detachment from even that concept that we exist in a heaven and hell every day. I exist in the moment. This moment right now. This moment is neither heaven nor hell. It just is. It just is. Now, I can perceive it as heaven, or I can perceive it as hell. But that is merely just my perception. I just read the first part of this, but I gotta read the rest of it. I will never exist again. You are absolutely right. Isaac Johnson will never exist again. Because even if you if you've raised your vibration high enough to elevate your consciousness to a whole nother existence, you have attracted so many other like elements that you are not the same Isaac that you were before. Let me see if that's what you meant. Even if you get every piece of me together again, I mean, can't be recreated, as you say. It's the environment, experience, thoughts, beliefs, etc. If my consciousness comes back and experience a different environment and consciousness, will not be me. It surely will not. This is the thing about like cloning. If you clone me and you clone me in South America, that's never going to be me. That's a whole other person. Even though it may have that 25% of my genetics, well, that's pretty much 100% of my genetics, but 25% of my consciousness, it may have a few similarities, but it will never be me because it's going to have different parents. It's growing up at a different time. It's in a whole other country. It's completely different. And you can't repeat what I went through. You can't repeat growing up with my mother, my brother, my sisters, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. That can never be repeated, ever. That exists solely on its own. See, I knew it. I knew it. You couldn't resist, could you, Sean? Couldn't resist. I knew. I was wondering which one of y'all was gonna break first. Sean, you won. You broke first. Oh, I think the smoke is what makes it blur. Oh well. I knew one of y'all was wondering who was gonna break first. Obviously, Sean, you win. You're the winner. That's why you're the preacher. So you can carve it up. You can tell me I'm crazy. You can say that now, I'm sounding just like everybody else or whatever you want. But there's more evidence in the universe that follows my line of thought than there is evidence that follows any of the religious thoughts whatsoever. Not one religious thought is supported. And I'm not saying I'm 100% right. Let me be clear. I'm not saying I'm 100% right. But I'm more right than them religions. I'm more right than Christianity. And then it becomes there is no punishment, there is no hell. And then it also becomes that heaven is not this boring ass place where all you're doing is praising this God 24 hours a day. Well, it's just 24 all day, all night. Well, there is no night, but you're not praising this God all the time. You got cherubim swinging around his head, talking some holy, holy, holy. There's 12 trees of life or in heaven next to the river, and you get to consume the fruit of it. There's none of that bullshit. There's not your family and friends are living in hell. All that stuff is out the window. It is merely your continued growth. Oh, Eric, now you feel you ready to say stuff too? Trauma probably next. Appreciate that, Christopher. It's not my intent to kick Christians' ass, though. Just to be clear, um, uh, they come on here for their own bullshit. They come here, and I'm just not the type that's going to allow false information to be said. So let me draw you an example. So when I'm coaching people, uh, one of the things that I do, and this is to me is a great example of that understanding that I just expressed. Now, I've shown you guys this before, so some of y'all may already seen it. So this is you. This is your consciousness. So C plus B, I'm doing that wrong, and it's not in the right spot. So C plus B squared equals infinite G, right? You got that? So C equals capacity. So if you look at your life and you say this is relationships, this is your money, this is your health, and what's another? Because I usually do this based on what a person is and what I'm coaching them about. And let's say this is your mindset. No. For this example, this is your conditioning. Basic shit you've been taught. You could be doing great in relationships. Feel this whole goddamn thing. You're the best husband, best brother, sister, mother, aunt, everything. You might be about right here in your money, your health. Most people health is about right here. And the conditioning, because you've been trapped by religions and culture and all that shit, you're about right there. Well, your next expansion should be here. But you can't grow in your relationships properly because your money ain't right, your health ain't right, and your conditioning is not right. So you reach the max limit of your relationship growth. And even if you get all your money right, you still got a max limit because you are devoid of other areas of higher vibrational thought. Until you get your vibrational thought of your health, and this, because this has your religion in it, until you get your vibrational health of your religion and the universe and how it works, until you get all of that. Because if you die from this existence and you don't get all that, this shit just disperses. But if you get, when you get all of that at the highest vibration in every department, now you can expand higher in your consciousness because you're on a different dimensional plane of understanding. You can grow. Now your relationships to everything in the universe grows. Your money, or whatever it is in that dimensional plane that is equivalent to it, grows. Your health can grow. And then once it all grows, another vibrational plane opens, and now you feel that. And that's a continuous thing, infinity, to infinity and beyond. That's when you can Buzz Lightyear that thing. That's when you Buzz Lightyear your existence. So when I'm coaching people and I'm dealing with them, I use this as a beginning concept to help them understand how you got to complete things. Because if you don't, let's say you didn't complete all of this shit, all that. Like in a lot of relationships, your money might be good, and you trying to get out here. Well, this creates like a bubble because this is grown. And if you ever been in a car or a bike and you have a bubble in your tire, as it continues to roll, you get that little bump, a little bump, doom, 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 doom. And the faster you try to go, doom, 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 doom. And eventually, if you got that bubble in your tire, the whole damn thing explodes. So we have to be in a state of growing our consciousness to maximize the higher vibration of everything in this existence that we can maximize. And it all don't look the same. I'm not saying everybody got to become rich. Everybody got to become, super healthy, looking like a model. And I'm not saying we all got to be, on the same spiritual plane, spiritual thought process, or relationship. I ain't saying all that. Everybody's going to be different, but until we get that balance in all the aspects of your life, your consciousness is not going to grow. It's all about your consciousness. You can be a millionaire on paper and be one emergency away from being broke. Or you can make $50,000 and have a perfect budget, and you're better off than the millionaire. You see what I'm saying? You could look on the outside, like, how many times have you seen a man or a woman and they look great with their clothes on? They take them clothes off? No. Well, even when they take their clothes off, they look great. But then they go get that blood work. They got diabetes, they got high blood pressure, they got all kinds of issues going on. So looks can be deceiving. It's about coming into that balance. And yes, not only is balance the key to a peaceful life, but what I'm overly expressing is that the balance is key to your continued growth of consciousness and existence. So most people is 1 to 3 bad months from homelessness. Nobody is 1 to 3 good months from being a billionaire. You're right about that. On average, it takes about 20 to 30 years to become a millionaire. On average. But who are you in the process? Are you becoming a full capacity person in that process? You go to the gym and you see that person every day at the gym. Okay, they're in the gym, they working out, they might be eating right, but who are they in relationships? Are they beating their spouse? Are they abusing their spouse? Are they abusing their children? Are they broke as a joke? Are they believing in these religions that they're filthy rags and they're not worthy, and they have to follow all these rules that was written by people 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, in order to reach the pinnacle of existence, which is to be in the house of their God? That is a handicap. That is the worst golf handicap you can have. And Jericho Walker, you actually don't know much about me. One, to call me an atheist. Two, to say that I'm a believer in the spaghetti monster, which you have no concept of the sarcasm that was spoken of concerning that. And three, I have always, if you listen to the videos, there are many videos where I talk about what I'm saying. I just don't go deep into it, because the purpose of the channel was not so much about what I think as far as life. But I've been inspired to do more towards that argument, to do more towards that development. Because I am not interested in subjecting people to the cruelty of the religious people who do nothing but to come into people's comments, the videos and whatnot, to cause disruption and plead their ignorance. More videos on how to become an infinite being, have an infinite mind. I will start producing very few here on these open channels of YouTube and TikTok and Facebook, but definitely the membership the members on YouTube and the subscription holders with, because those people are of a different mindset. They're of a different mindset. And I'd rather deal with people who are moving in a higher consciousness for this type of information than to deal with all the bullshit of people like Jericho, or people like James, Rivers, all of them. You know, just like I would never go into someone's church or synagogue or mosque to tell them that you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. In those spaces, it's a space where people don't have to worry about that. And plus, I get to talk about other stuff like making money, enjoying life, how to treat people. But some of those videos will be placed here as well. Oh, of course, yes. They see 2 minutes of a video or a title, and then they got their comments. And they are, and this is the thing, they're normal, low vibrational people who are highly uneducated and drowning in their indoctrination, and that's why they will pretty much go into oblivion. They think that they're going to go to this heaven, but the reality is, this idea of heaven that they have, I used to be nice about it and say, oh, if a Christian really believes that they're going to go to this heaven with their God, they're going to go to this God. But most of them really believe that they're not worthy enough and they're going to go to this hell that they create for themselves. In truth, in full disclosure, these people will just go into oblivion. They will cease to exist, right? They will become nothingness. And that core part of them will reattract, coming to an existence again, and depending upon whether or not whether they increase their vibrational thoughts, or as an alchemist would say, unless they go from lead to gold, they will repeat this cycle over and over again, never seeing this Jesus, this guy. Because here's the thing, what people whose mind was on such a low vibrational level before Jesus are now believing in Jesus. People whose mind was so low in vibration that they were believing in Marduk are now believing in Allah, right? So if their existence went into oblivion, but when it coalesced enough again and they come back, Jesus probably won't exist. The Christian belief will be this ancient religion that lasted from, however they calculate time at this. Let's say we're still on a Greco-Roman calendar. Their time from 2000, from 0 BCE, 0 CE till about 2100 CE or 2200 CE, however long this Christianity lasts, it won't even be there anymore. They'll be looking at that as some ancient religion that they can't believe that people are dumb enough to believe in that. Just like they think people were dumb enough to believe in Oshun, dumb enough to believe in Zeus, dumb enough to believe in Odin, dumb enough to believe in all these guys that virtually no one believes in now. I'm sure they never think about that there were people who believed in Odin just as much as they believed in Jesus. But when you contemplate that, those people they didn't go to Valhalla. There's no Valhalla. And their consciousness may not have got enough energy to be a totally different person. And it may be 1,000,000 years, 2,000,000 years. And they might exist on a whole nother planet. Because I don't accept, well, it's not an acceptance, not mathematics just says that there's absolutely no way in hell that we are the only conscious beings in the universe. I mean, it's an interesting thought. I would love. So, if Jericho, do you think that this is the only place that life exists? This is the only place that conscious life exists. I'm really curious as to whether you think this is the only place that conscious life exists. No, sir. I'm not generalizing you based on some white person's thought process. It's based on your statements. Based on your statements, what it alludes me to believe is that you are a believer in this Bible. Now, if I'm wrong, I can accept and say that I'm wrong. That's perfectly fine. But I don't generalize. Well, I do generalize because there is a general consensus of thought. And to look at a general consensus of thought is not racist. That makes no sense. That's grasping for straws, my guy. And let me see. Where was your other comment? Let me see. I don't recall you ever giving me any sources to anything. I don't recall you, period, Jericho. I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. I just don't recall you. And since you called me an atheist, now giving consciousness, so it led me to think that you are a believer in some religion. I always find that funny when they like, I gave you references. One guy was telling me, putting on a comment, I beat Coach Rans down. I'm like, when did shit that happen? I don't I don't debate people. So when did that happen? But you know, and they act like I'm supposed to remember them. I don't. You see, one of the things of lowering your vibration is when you focus on people who are operating at a lower vibration. And to say that lower vibration, to use that is something. What did he say? Let me not say it wrong. What did I just say? Low vibration is a term used by religious philosophers, not necessarily atheists. So I'm racist for generalizing him, yet he generalized me. Make that make sense. Then lower vibration is actually not something that was used by religious philosophers. The idea of vibration comes from the world of alchemy, not alchemy and hermetics, not religion. Now, religions have tried to adopt that thought process, try to ingratiate it into their teachings because they see that people are waking up to the idea, to the, well, not the idea, to the knowledge that everything in the universe vibrates. Everything has vibration. Nothing, there's no such thing as death. There is just the transmutation of energy from one form to another based on its vibration and its frequency. That's it. So I don't know, but Jericho, do you believe that life only exists on Earth? That in all this known universe, this God just put life on Earth? So you asked a friend what Christian denomination he was. He couldn't tell you. I told him there were like over 1,000, and he was shocked when I told him he's really Catholic, telling him history he never knew. Most people don't realize that if you're claiming Christianity, um, any type of modern day Christianity, unless you're coming from the Eastern Orthodox or the Ethiopians, you're pretty much Catholic. I'm asking you what your thoughts. Do you think that conscious life only exists on Earth? Yeah, I'm asking you, Jericho. I'm asking. Yeah, I'm asking you. I already said that it's a mathematical impossibility, but I wonder if you think that's is it. And since y'all like to ask me all the time, and you say you're not Abrahamic, what is your belief system or your factual system, whichever one you, whatever you know what I mean. Let's say this is Eric. This is not Jericho. Said it before. In the near future, Christianity will be a thing of the past and heavily frowned upon. There will be no new world religion or concept, and that's when things will become really strange. Yeah, there will not be Christianity will die. Okay. My existence is here on earth. Have you ever experienced life on another? You see, this is why I don't deal with low vibrational people. And yes, I'm calling you a low vibrational person simply because I asked you a very specific question. Do you believe that conscious life exists on other planets? And what is your belief system? I didn't ask you about this. This is not an answer. Have you ever? That's not an answer. My existence is here on earth. That's not an answer. I asked you, what do you believe? See, people be thinking I'm trying to work them. I'm not trying to work you. I'm asking you a legitimate question. I'm not trying to do a gotcha because I have no idea what you're going to say. My only thing is, why do people seem like they know more about space and the cosmos than they know about the ocean and the surface of the earth? Well, that's quite simple, in all honesty. So the density of matter in space is incredibly less than the density of matter on the planet. In order to truly know what's in the oceans, we have to be able to develop instrumentations and things of that nature that can truly survey the ocean. Sure, we got LIDAR and sonar, but that only is going to tell us so much. We can't send anything down that deep to really know what's down there. And then it's such a vast area, just like space is vast, but it's just easier technologically wise. Oh my God, dude. I didn't ask you where your consciousness is. Do you believe that conscious life, not yours, conscious life exists on other planets? It's that simple. It's really a yes or no. There's other life on other planets. There's not other life on other planets. Simple question. Very simple. And since you said you're not Abrahamic, well, what is your belief? What do you follow? Just curious. Since people like to ask me that damn question all the time. I know, Stephanie. I know. It's just a simple question. But yes, religion has taken over. You cannot critically think and follow any of the religions that are alive today, to be honest. Well, let me rephrase that. There's a limit to your critical thinking if you follow any of the religions today. Because most of those, I ain't gonna say any, but most of those religions do not allow for critical thinking. Because critically thinking will make you go outside of that religion. I know, Trauma. You don't answer questions with questions. I don't see what's so hard about it. And I don't see what takes so long to type yes or no. Just yes. Y-E-S. Boom. N-O. Boom. That's all it takes. See, one of the things about having a higher conscious brain, higher consciousness, is the willingness to be able to answer a question directly and contemplate the response to that question. Not immediately throw it off, but contemplate it for however long is needed in order to come to a resolution of what was responded back. And be open to the fact that the other person may be valid in their statement. If you're always locked in to only what you favor, what you accept, what you've been taught, indoctrinated, or you've discovered, then you've closed the book on all of it. You can't grow. You can only grow as far as the book allows or the teaching allows. Oh my God. In my experience here on earth, you're supposed to be understanding. To understand, I experience life and consciousness here. My question to you is, did you experience life and consciousness elsewhere? Do you understand, or is that too high a vibration for you? I ask you, do you believe that there a life, conscious life exists on a whole nother planet? You saying that your experience here on Earth has nothing to do with my asking, do you believe that there's life on another planet? So that whole part is not even something to consider. And no, of course, I've never experienced. If you was here earlier, as I said, my consciousness of who I am right now has never experienced any other levels of consciousness that I will be able to actively experience or remember other than what I've experienced at this level of this consciousness. That's it. That this is not whatever my consciousness was existing as in any other time frame. I can only experience this consciousness. But because I have the ability of critical thinking, and we have math. Mathematically, other conscious life exists on other planets. I was simply asking you the very easy question of, do you think life exists on other planets? Because your statement that you made is not a high vibrational statement. It's actually more of a deflecting statement because you don't want to answer the simple question that I asked. But it's fine. You don't have to answer. It's not that big a deal. It's not a big deal. That's all I was asking. Heal just gave a simple answer to a simple question. You know, the beauty of math is that the level of math that we have right now, it doesn't lie, but it doesn't answer all the questions. So, like, who was it? John Dees. He was asked the question, but the math that he was able to use at the time frame couldn't answer the question, and it kept coming out that things in the universe didn't respond the way that his math would allow. So he went back and created calculus. And then with the advent of calculus, then the mathematical equation worked for the bodies in the skies that were moving. When you look up research astronomy, when you learn about astronomy, that has always been the case. Uh, I forgot who originally thought that all the planets made a complete circle. It was a perfect circle around the Earth, I mean, around the sun. And the model that they created was based on that. But then the math just wasn't working out that they had. And so additional math had to be created in order for that. I only put this up here because, as I said in the very beginning, an hour ago, when talking about my thought process, when you raise your consciousness, when you raise your vibrational thought, the ideas of race, gender, nationalities, all of those become low vibrational thoughts. Now, do race only exist because we created race, right? Race was created by humans. A low vibrational thought to trick some poor people into thinking that they had a common enemy. That's how race was created. Before that, it was more tribalism and nationalities. But then race was created in order to facilitate slave trade. But to still think in those terms is a low vibrational thought. Debbie is just a James who actually can put a sentence together. Right. That in itself is a racist thought. What Eric say? You experience consciousness everywhere, all at once, every day. You're living in the existence, right? Whether you understand it or it is something completely different. And the answer is no, you don't. And if you keep asking low vibration questions, you will never break out of the low frequency of your brain operates with. I didn't say it. That was Eric said. But yes, math is the universal language. Who wrote that? Jeremy. Yes, math is a universal language. You, no matter what people try to say, don't say, math is. And math is a language that is straightforward. It has no boundaries. It has nothing that can shrink it down. It can only be improved upon. It can only be expanded. You know, um, and that is one of the primary ways we expand our knowledge is through math. I'm not great at math, which is why I didn't become an physicist because I would have failed all the math. The more I deconstruct, believers get really defensive when you ask simple questions or you point out biblical verses that they aren't aware of. Yes, they do, very quickly. Um, and I understand they are so caught up into this religion that they find it offensive for any other thought beyond that. And yes, music is the universal language, and music is mathematical. Like music and math go hand in hand. Trauma. You lose. I'm gonna say frontal lobe consciousness, but your subconscious is still at work. It's kind of like when you get anesthesia. Your consciousness is just at a different space. Oh my God. Didn't earlier he say that I was being racist to generalize people? I know plenty of white people who understand what Kendrick Lamar was saying. But so wouldn't the equivalency of that would be black Christians don't understand how slavery in the Bible, the transatlantic slave trade was according to the Bible and how the Bible was written and is 100% in concert with the Bible. So if a white person said that black people still trying to figure out why slavery was perfectly fine for the Europeans, well, I tell you, the level. See, that reminds me of the thought process. Somebody asked me earlier, what do I think of Hebrew Israelites? Is that mindset? That's the mindset of the Hebrew Israelite. I'm not saying that he's a Hebrew Israelite, but that's the mindset of the Hebrew Israelites. You know, everything is encapsulated in race. I'm with you in as far as like, yes, we all have the ability to raise our consciousness and frequency so that we can uh, elevate each other, help each other without judgment. Uh, we're capable, but people turn over their agency of free thinking, of critical thinking to religions and to political parties and nationalities and race and gender and all these other bullshits. I know Trump. I saw a whole bunch of white people on TikTok who were expressing the correct understanding of what Kendrick Lamar was saying. Oh, they probably got that from listening to some black people video. Trauma. See, that what had happened. See, they saw somebody black video explaining it, and then they was like, oh, let me go ahead and act like I understand. Because you know how they like to steal our creativity and be able to use it for themselves. So nah. All religions did astrotheology and animism. Got to put the animism in there. You know, watching nature on Earth. But yes, they pretty much all of them come from that. And it was better. It would have been better, and the understanding would have been greater. Like, okay, hold on. Let's talk about this for a second. I know I'm over time, but I still got a teeny bit of cigar left. I want you to think about this for a second, Boondocks, because you're an intelligent guy. I think you're a guy. But if the world would have continued on the process of astrotheology and animism, then we would not have had religion stopping the growth of knowledge as it did in so many cultures, and especially the cultures that dominate the world today, right? If the focus would have been, because math would have become an incredibly important, it will advance more rapidly in trying to understand the cosmos than it did under, you know, of these other religions. And although you may have the dark ages that happened in Europe, you still had growth going on in China, growth in the Arab countries, growth in African countries. You still had growth in other countries. But as we say with slavery, how many geniuses were killed because of slavery? How many geniuses were shut down or killed because of the dark ages? I mean, Copernicus had to wait till after he died to publish his findings. You see what I'm saying? Oh, he's talking about that dude. No. We talk about the remaining of my cigar, man. That is what many of us. The farther away from faith we get, the more peace we have. You know, Randall, I want you to go back a little further. I think kingship and oligarchy stopped animism and astrotheology, because once kingships started, the belief that the belief in creation of gods started happening, and that belief in creation of gods and that direct connection was through the king. Because if you think about it, a lot of for thousands of years, it was believed that the king was receiving direct connection from God, that the king was the God living on earth, you know, the image of God. The idea, and it was later on as kings start to go away, that the image of God and the likeness of God start being democratized amongst people in general. But if the kings hadn't started that shit, and we got to go all the way back to Sumerians and Akkadians, and the Greeks, and the Shin, way back in China and Africa, all everywhere, wherever kingship started, whenever people started kingships, the astrotheology and animism got replaced. Right. Boom. I was like, the kings were appointed by the god. Oh, speaking of cigars, I got that nub triple roast and had it with coffee. But I told you that damn triple roast. I told you. I'm sure if my wife see that comment, she with you. That triple roast, boy, that thing there with some coffee. Nah, I went ahead and put it out. Not in roach clips. I let it burn my fingers. Got to get to the burn on the finger. Sorry, I meant to hit that one first. As I've always said, I'm about 50-50 on Billy Carson. 50% grift, and then 50, but that grift has to come from some level of accuracy. But he takes the accuracy that he does have, combine it with a bunch of other bullshit, and grift people. Since I accidentally hit this, let me hit it for real. Some people like to put people in categories. It's not much thinking or work involved. It takes energy and time to understand people on an individual level. Example, black people are lazy, white people are racist, Mexicans are rapists. Exactly. And people don't want to do that work to individualize each person, because each person is an individual living in their own universe, experiencing it all at the same time. When you have that one with have it with coffee. I'm telling you, I don't know if you drink coffee, but if you drink coffee, have it with some coffee. Even if you don't drink coffee, the damn thing is good. Went and got some of those today. Yes. Giordano Bruno was an alchemist, astrologer, and esoteric who was burned at the stake by the Spanish Inquisition in 1600s. If he wasn't, we don't know what he would have expounded upon. You know what I mean? If John Dees wasn't hindered by religion, we don't know what levels he would have expounded upon as well. Religion has hindered the growth of so many people. Yeah. But even though that specific that particular segment of that video, West Huff, kind of like broke old boy down, West Huff is been debunked so much and full of shit himself. Yep, told you I knew she was watching. Picked up some today. You had to use a toothpick with that cigar just to get all of it. It was that good to you. It was that. I used to use a knife. I don't particularly care for the cigar picks. All right. Well, it's been about 2.5 hours, so you know what time it is. But there's something. Oh yeah, I have to prepare for tomorrow. I got a lot of work to do. Not just tomorrow's video, tomorrow's live. So if you're new here, we go live every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But I also got some other things. I'm going to start shooting more videos for the membership and subscribers. So that will start tomorrow. The members and subscribers will get more videos as well on the how to. They're going to get more videos on expanding their consciousness, getting into the higher vibrations, as well as a few other things. So they'll start getting those tomorrow if you're a member or subscriber. So I thank all those people who support the channel by being members and subscribers. I don't feel like doing a Patreon, so I'd rather just do members and subscribers. But it was great. It was good tonight. It was good tonight. I wasn't exactly sure how this was going to go over, but it went over very well. It went over very well. Not as much intrusion as I thought there was going to be. So, thank you for being here. And I will see you guys tomorrow. So, everybody have a great night. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations. And of course, y'all can keep on talking to each other in the chat. I think. Good night.